Hi sewists and aspiring sewists, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Doyen, and in today's tutorial I'm going to be teaching you how to make this beautiful long sleeve turtleneck. So if this looks like what you're interested in, then let's dive into the main video. So to achieve this, we're going to be using this high quality cotton rib fabric. So what I have here is about 1.5 yards. So this is what I'm going to be using for this tutorial. Now this material is very stretchy, and this is the best material for you to use when you're working with turtleneck. Also, this is the standard measurement I'm going to be working with for this tutorial. This is a small size measurement, so if you're a small size person, this measurement is a go for you. So with no further delay, let's get right into the main reason why we're here. So after laying my fabrics on fold, now what I have here as my width circumference is exactly my bust measurement divided by 4. So now I have my bust as 33 inches. Dividing that by 4, that's going to give me 8.25 centimeter, 8.25 inches, you understand. So what I have here is 8.25, just as you can see me illustrate in this video. Next, I'm going to measure my length. So for my length here, I have 21 inches, and that is what I'm going to be using as my actual length. But before then, I'm going to be taking out my folding allowance, which is 1 inch. So I'm going to be marking out 1 inch here, and I'm going to mark that on different angles of my fabric. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to proceed by measuring my actual measurement. So for my actual measurement, I have 21 inches, which is what I'm going to mark right now. So next, I'm going to measure my shoulder. So for my shoulder here, I have 14 inches. 14 inches divided by 2, that's going to give me 7 inches. But I realized that 7 inches was probably going to be too much for me, so I reduced it to 6.5. So from my shoulder line, I'm going to come down by 1 inch, which is what you can see me illustrate right here. Then I'm going to merge my line towards the center point of my fabric, just as you can see me illustrate in this video. Next, I'm going to measure my armhole. So for my armhole, I'm going to be using 6.5. Now the reason why I'm using 6.5 is because we're working with a very stretchy fabric, and so you don't want your armhole area to be oversized. In fact, if you want to use 6 inches, you are good to go. So after that, I'm also going to measure my chest line. So for my chest line, since I use 6.5 as my shoulder line, I'm going to be using 6 inches for my chest line because I don't want it to be too deep at my chest line area. So what I'm using here is 6 inches. So I'm going to mark my point, and I'm going to match these lines together. So now that I have the shape of what I want, I'm going to go ahead to cut out what I have here. So for my neckline measurement, I'm going to go by measuring 2 inches as my neckline width, which is what you can see me illustrate right here. So once I'm done with that, I'm also going to go by measuring my neckline depth. So for my neckline depth, I'm going to go by measuring 2.5 inches, which is what you can also see me illustrate here. So once I have that done, I'm going to merge my lines together using my French curve, just as you can see me illustrate right here. So once I have that marked out, the next thing I'm going to do is to cut out this piece. So after that, I went ahead to place my front bodies on my back bodies. Now since we're working with the same measurement, we're going to be placing the front bodies on the back bodies just to equate it with what we already measured. So take note of the fact that the back will be higher than the front. So for the back, we're going to be coming up by 1 inch allowance. So I'm going to be slanting my 1 inch allowance towards the center point of my fabric, just as you can see me illustrate right here. Now let me quickly chip this in. Because you're working with a very stretchy fabric, you're meant to use the exact measurement for this style. So if your bust is 32 inches, you're meant to use exactly 32 inches without adding any seam allowance to it. And if your waist is 28 inches, you are using exactly 28 inches without adding any seam allowance to it. Now why is it so? It is because this material is more like an elastic fabric, which is very stretchy. The stretchiness is limitless, so that is why we are doing this. So for my neckline, for my back neckline depth, I'm using 1 inch, and I'm also using the same 2 inches I used for my front neckline. So after this, the next thing I'm going to do will be to cut out my traces. So to reconfirm what I said previously, my bust is 33 inches, and what I have here is 8.25, which is exactly my 33 inches. And also for my length, I have 21 inches here, which is because I don't want it to be too long. So to achieve my sleeve curve, I'm going to be using my armhole measurement. So for my armhole, while I was measuring my armhole, I made use of 6.5 inches. So for my sleeve width, default width, I'm going to be making use of 6.5 inches as well. So by the time I'm making my curve, whatever I have there should fit into my armhole. Moving on, I'm going to go by measuring my sleeve length. So for my sleeve length, I have 26 inches here. So I'm going to proceed by measuring 26 inches on my fabric. Now I'm going to be adding 1 inch allowance to my 26 inches, which serve as my folding allowance. So I'm going to go ahead to mark 27 inches here. Now you might be wondering why it is so long. That's because it is getting to my palm area. So if you want it to get to your palm area, you measure it, you measure the actual length you want, and you use the exact length you need. So to achieve my arm curve, I'm going to come down by 3 inches, and I'm going to merge my line to meet with the center point of my fabric, just as you can see me illustrate right here. So once I'm done with that, I'm going to proceed by measuring my arm. So for my arm here, I have 10 inches, which is also referred to as my round sleeve. So I'm going to go by dividing that into 2, and I'm going to measure 5 inches here. So as you can see, I'm merging my line to meet the point of my arm. So to achieve a very fitted sleeve, you're going to measure your arm, your elbow, your wrist, and your palm area, which is what I'm doing right here. So the next thing to measure is my elbow. So for my elbow here, I have 9 inches. Dividing that into 2, that's going to give me 4.5. So for my elbow length, I have 12 inches here, and I'm going to go ahead to mark my 4.5 inches on this part. So as you can see here is 4.5, and I'm going to mark that on my sleeve. Now after that, I'm going to match my lines together. Next, I'm going to measure my wrist. So for my wrist, I'm going to use 6.5 inches. Now 6.5 inches is what I have as my wrist measurement, and for this I'm going to start by measuring it at 22 inches length. So I'm going to divide 6.5 into 2, and that's going to give me 3 1/4. So what I have here is 3 1/4, and that's what I'm going to be measuring. Mind you, I'm a slim person. This is why I'm working with my exact wrist measurement. Now for my palm, I have 8 inches here as my palm measurement. So I'm going to divide that also by 2, and that's going to give me 4 inches. Now I'm going to go ahead to mark my 4 inches here, and I'm going to merge my lines together. So once I have this pointed out, the next thing I'm going to do now will be to cut what I have here. So make sure that whatever measurement you are using is the exact measurement, and that's because you're working with a very stretchy fabric. So next thing I'm going to do is to cut this out. So once I'm done cutting, the next thing I'm going to do will be to notch the center point of my sleeve, which is what you can see right here. Next, I'm going to work on my turtleneck collar. Now what I'm going to be using for my turtleneck width is 6.5. If you're a bit chubby, you can make use of 7 inches, 7.5, depending on how chubby you are. But because I'm a slim person, I'm working with 6.5 as my width measurement, and this includes seam allowance. So I'm going to go by marking 6.5 on different angles here. I'm also going to proceed by measuring my length. So for my length here, I'm going to be making use of 6 inches, which on fold is going to give me 3 inches. Now you can decide to make use of 10 inches depending on how long you want your turtleneck collar to be. If you want to fold it, if you want it very long, that such that it is foldable, you can make it 10 inches, you can make it 12 inches, depending on how you want it to be. So for me, I don't want to fold it, that's why I'm making use of 6 inches. So now after cutting, this is what I have, this is what it's looking like. So this is how it is going to be on around my neckline, just as you can see me illustrate right here. So it depends on how long you want your collar to be. That's what will determine the length you're going to be using for it. So for this tutorial, this is all you need for this tutorial. So we no further delay, let's just get right into the whole sewing process. So the first thing we're going to begin with right here is to attach the shoulders together. So I'm going to be placing my front bodice on my back bodice, and I'm going to be joining the shoulder, just as you can see me do in this video. After this is the result of what I did. So the next thing I'm going to do now will be to mark the center point of my armhole. Now remember that we actually added 1 inch allowance to the back shoulder line, so that makes the back higher than the front. So now I'm going to be marking the center point, because the center point is not on the joining of the shoulder but at a little distance away from the joining. So that is what I'm trying to do here. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other armhole as well, just to mark my center points, just as you can see me illustrate right here. So once I'm done with that, I'm going to spread my armhole just as you can see me illustrate right here. Now, since I know the center point of my sleeve, I also notch the center point of my armhole. I'm going to pin both notched area just as you can see me illustrate right here. Now you can see that my sleeve is actually fitting into my armhole just because I made use of the exact measurement I was meant to use. Now the next thing I'm going to do now will be to weave this all through. I'm also going to repeat the same process on the other armhole sleeve as well. Moving on, after attaching my sleeve to my armhole, this is what we have. This is what it is looking like. So the next thing I'm going to be doing now will be to join the sides of my top. So to achieve this, I'm going to be picking my joining from my sleeve area, just as you can see me illustrate right here. Now the main point is that the joining of your armhole is also aligning together while you sew. So I'm going to be sewing this downward, and I'm also going to repeat the same process on the other side of my top as well. Now it was at this point I remember that I didn't measure my waist, which I should have actually reduced from the actual body measurements. So for my waist I have 28 inches, so what I should be having at the downside of my top should be 7 inches while I shape it towards my bust area. But it's not too late, so what I'm just going to do is to align my top back again, and I'm going to measure my 28 inches. 28 divided by 4 is going to give me 7 inches. So I'm going to double fold my top, just as you can see me illustrate right here, and I'm going to go ahead to measure 7 inches. So from the center point of my fabric, I'm going to measure 7 inches, and I'm going to mark out that point. So from that point, I'm just going to merge my line towards the upper part of my top, which is my bust area. So after that, I'm going to cut out what we have here. The truth is that if I actually do not reduce it, I will still have a very fitted top, but at the same time I want to avoid any foldings. So moving on, I'm going to join the side of my top, and I'm also going to repeat the same process on the other side as well. So after sewing, this is what we have. So next thing here is to trim whatever excess I have underneath. So you can see that there is a little excess here, so this is what I'm trimming off. Next I'm going to be working on is my collar. So for this, I'm going to be folding it like this, and I'm going to join this part of my collar. After joining my collar, I'm going to be folding it like this, just as you can see me illustrate right here. So for this, I'm going to be attaching the part where there is joining towards the part where there is joining on my neckline, just as you can see me illustrate right here. So at this point, feel free to make use of your pin. So because I'm working with a very stretchy fabric, you can see that it's easier for it to fit into my neckline. So what I'll just do is just pin this down. So I'm going to pin it round, just because I don't want the joining parts to alternate each other. So once I'm able to successfully pin this down, I'm going to go ahead to weave this round. So after stitching, here is what my turtleneck looks like. So I can start to run a double stitch around the neckline. So the next thing I'm going to do now will be to fold my sleeve and fold the downside of my top. So I can decide to actually use this dipping machine for it, but I'm just going to just run a straight stitch. So after that, this is what it looks like. This is how it is really looking like. So if you would love to try this, please let me know in the comment section. And this is me saying, if you're yet to subscribe to my YouTube channel, what are you waiting for? I mean, we teach our value here, so what are you waiting for? Can you subscribe, like, share, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.